Lost in the noise of winning an ACC championship, NC State's actually still got to play in another tournament. Wolfpack are going dancing.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers can join today and get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. And Kenton, as I mentioned there, I think it gets a little bit overlooked in all of the confetti and the trophies and winning an ACC championship. NC State is in March Madness. They are in the NCAA Tournament. And I got to tell you, standing in the stands with the confetti going, I had honestly forgotten about that piece of the puzzle. And then they bring out the big March Madness ticket there. You're quickly reminded, we've been saying no dance, no chance, but now they have the chance to keep on dancing.
Yeah, and not only do they have the chance to keep on dancing, they earned it by beating our rival, but not rival, according to Bryce Johnson. This tweet from Bryce Johnson gave us all an aneurysm, but I will try my best to read it anyway. By the way, this doesn't make y'all our rivalries. What the rivalry's in possession of, I don't know, except for a championship for NC State this year. Who knows? But, hey, he's one of the smartest UNC grads there is. Everybody said it. Plenty of people are saying he's one of the smartest that 30 Foot Club has produced. So makes a lot of sense there. But on to bigger, better, more relevant things. Like you said, there is a chance to continue to dance if we can get past Texas Tech, which will be a very tall order.
As you might notice, UNC is both profound and very unbothered by NC State winning an ACC title.
Super unbothered.
Yes, NC State, of course, they are an automatic bid. They are considered a bid stealer for the NCAA tournament. On Selection Sunday, they were picked into the South region. We'll be giving you a little bit of preview of that in just a couple minutes. Their opening round game is against Texas Tech. I think that's a very interesting matchup. We're going to be looking forward to getting into that in the next couple days as well. But we talked so much about getting back to the dance this year had to be the goal for Kevin Keats and this squad here in year 7. As the season rolled on, the optimism that goal would be achieved continued to slip until you finish the regular season and you quickly understand if we don't win the ACC tournament, perhaps you would not be playing in any tournament, both the NCAA or the NIT, of course, with the ongoing ramifications at the time. They go 5 for 5. They win all 5. They win the ACC tournament. Lo and behold, they are back in March Madness. Crazy to think about here. Obviously, the run that we pulled off and the way in which we put the exclamation point in beating UNC on Saturday night, NC State was basically the focal point of the college basketball world over this past weekend. That is something else that NC State fans have missed sorely for a very long time. We have wanted to be relevant in March forever. Haven't had a tournament win since 2015, the last time actually, ironically, we played in Pittsburgh, wouldn't you know it, when we upset LSU and Villanova in back-to-back games. But the speed at which the season outlook changed over the course of last week is mind-boggling. Life comes at you fast, as they say.
It comes at you at the speed of life.
Oh my God, we just won an ACC championship. Oh my God, we're in March Madness. Oh my God, is this 1983 again? What I think is really crazy, we've talked for decades now about what 1983 was to the school, to college basketball as a whole, and we just witnessed half of what they saw in 1983. They had to run through the ACC tournament just for a shot to get into March Madness, and we know how the rest ended there. We just witnessed half of that. And so the excitement is now back. As quick as you thought it was gone, it is completely back around this program. We said it on here before. We said it 1,000 times. Once you get into the dance, anything can happen from there on out.
Anything. And we talk about, it's the old saying that it's not fighters that make fights, it's styles that make fights, right? And you look at some of these matchups that NC State could potentially run into going forward. And I'm going to tell you, I think the Texas Tech is the worst matchup for State in this next 2 to 3 game span. Obviously, Houston is Houston. They're a buzzsaw. They are who they are. But Grayson and I have we've talked about how Houston does, what they do, and the fact that they blitz every single screen in the way that they do, and teams still haven't adjusted. But we also saw in their last game a team that could adjust, a team that did have multiple ball handlers. And you want to know what was so interesting about NC State in this tournament? There was not only DJ Horn, there was MOC. There was not only DJ Horn and MOC, there was Jaden Taylor doing good things with the ball in his hand. There was not only MOC, DJ Horn, Jaden Taylor. You also had Casey Morcell making good decisions with the ball in his hand. And then you think to yourself, well, that's the full complement of guards. Nobody else can really handle the ball and make good decisions. DJ Burns and Mo Diarra both had games of over 5 assists in this tournament. So, not to put the cart in front of the horse, this matchup against Texas Tech, a team that, again, parallels us in many ways, this is the one that you feel like if we can get past here, there's something serious brewing here because, again, stylistically, a lot of teams that we could potentially match up with if we win this game struggle with what NC State did well last week, which is, again, just all of these guards coming at you relentlessly, making the right pass, defensive intensity, taking care of the ball. I'm not saying, but I'm saying.
I mean, hey, after what we witnessed last week, same deal. Keep your expectations low and just enjoy the ride. But
exactly.
That's a perfect segue. We're going to take a look at the South Region bracket here after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor of the day is Nissan. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. The Auburn Tigers can only be described as a Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves after claiming the top spot in the SEC. As they knocked off the Florida Gators in the SEC Tournament Championship, they are now set to make a run in the NCAA Tournament. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Our second sponsor of the day is Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experience with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV. Whether it's opening weekend for MLB or the NCAA basketball tournament quickly approaching, you're going to want to have an Amazon Fire TV. Trust me, I have one. Take this advice. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. This includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the in-game analysis, highlights, and more to keep you up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well for all of you chefs out there. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, well, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. The Locked On College Basketball Bracket Breakdown Show is now available on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Our experts Andy Patton and Isaac Shade will break down their brackets and discuss everything that you need to know to fill out the winning bracket and prepare for this year's NCAA Tournament. Find Locked On Bracket Breakdown now on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Middle portion of our Tuesday show mentioned we're going to take a look here at the South Region bracket that came out after being selected on Sunday. You might see a potential path here if the chips fall where they may. So obviously here, and you've probably already seen this by now, but if you have not, the top 4 seeds in the South Region, which contains NC State. Number 1, you have Houston. Number 2, Marquette. Number 3, you have Kentucky. And number 4, you have Duke. So interesting here that the 4 seed in this bracket is a team you have seen recently and also beaten recently. I like this draw for NC State. I think this is a very favorable draw. Of course, not to discredit Texas Tech. That's an extremely tough matchup in just the first round. But being that we just saw the most memorable ACC tournament run, anything is possible for NC State in this tournament. I don't see any team in this South region that is unbeatable. I think even Houston. And Houston is insane. They are a extremely well-rounded basketball team. But even they can be humbled. They were just humbled in the Big 12 tournament. They got absolutely blown out by Iowa State on their run to the Big 12 championship. So even Houston has faults in their armor. NC State here, we talked about them feeling dangerous in the ACC tournament. I think that mindset is very easily able to be continued over to the NCAA tournament.
I don't want to, nor am I going to disrespect any of these other teams. Like I've already said, not putting the cart ahead of the horse. I think Texas Tech is the toughest matchup for NC State in this region. I really and truly do. We know what Kentucky is. Kentucky is always going to be super athletic, super gifted. They stole one of ours and Robert Dillingham. And you know, they're a team. They can run you out the gym. They got some very athletic bigs that make it really hard on you on the boards and down low. But Kentucky's Achilles heel, come tournament time, has always been teams with 2, 3, 4 guards that could handle the ball well, that could make good decisions, and that could put pressure on their guards and make their guards have to make good decisions with the ball in their hands. So there's that. You look at Oakland. I think that's a team that was badly underseeded. They give Kentucky a little bit of a run for their money. And Oakland is in a very similar vein in that they've got multiple guards who can fill it up. They really and truly do. I believe they had their conference's leading scorer, who for some reason did not make first-team all-conference in the Horizon, I believe it is, the conference they play in. Florida, Boise State, Colorado, not going to say I've seen enough of them, or Western Kentucky to know and say, hey, this is what those teams are. However, Marquette, very disciplined team. They take care of the ball well. They give you absolute fits in terms of they don't give up dumb fouls and they don't give up dumb turnovers. And I know that sounds like, well, that's nothing. Everybody does that. No. Those guys really don't do that. Like, they really are really good at that. And so, you know, that's a tough draw there. But Marquette at times has struggled in terms of having a guy that you can roll the ball out to that can go get you a bucket when you absolutely need it. At times, they have struggled with that. That has been a bit of an Achilles heel for them. So there's nobody in this side of the bracket that's unbeatable. But again, NC State's toughest test is with a team that has, I believe, 4 or 5 guys averaging double digits, 4 of which are guards. That is, this Texas Tech team is absolutely nothing to sleep on. This 11-6 matchup should be a great one.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, NC State certainly has their work cut out for them because every team that has made this tournament is in this tournament for a reason. There are perhaps some matchups that would be potentially more favorable than others, but I do really like this draw for NC State. And Kenton, you sort of alluded to it, but the Kentucky-Oakland matchup that is within our pod, the winner of Texas Tech and NC State will play the winner of Kentucky and Oakland. I think Oakland may be my biggest upset pick within this region. Kentucky's the 3, Oakland is the 14. The things that I've seen out of Oakland, and albeit very brief, I've just seen clips and a couple strongly worded tweets about them. One of them may have been from Kenton, but no, I do think that Oakland has the capability of shocking the Wildcats here and advancing into the round of 32. And that becomes obviously extremely significant for the winner of Texas Tech and NC State. If it is NC State, but if you have the choice between playing Kentucky and playing Oakland, you're going to like your chances playing Oakland.
Yeah, and you know, they both present different problems, but I'll say this. The biggest problem for DJ Burns has been when there have been guys who just have an immense amount of length on them. Kentucky is going to have that in spades, right? They're going to have multiple guys that are big physical guys. They're going to be, tall enough to present that problem for DJ Burns that has come up from time to time in the past that Oakland does not have in spades. You can't replicate that type of size, and they just don't have it in the same way Kentucky does. So, I absolutely understand where you're coming from in terms of saying, hey, Oakland is a little bit better of a matchup for NC State than Kentucky could potentially be.
I'll say this too. Having to go up against Rob Dillingham would be very bittersweet, to say the least, because you look at Rob Dillingham, obviously was committed to NC State. I believe he was the number one point guard in his class, ultimately winding up at Kentucky. And this team, obviously, the beginning of this season, before the offense started to kind of take shape, you really felt, man, Rob Dillingham would make a massive difference on this team. So potentially having to see him in the round of 32 would make for an interesting showdown. I think if NC State were to get past Texas Tech and then even see Kentucky, this is another game where NC State's going to have to be on their P's and Q's. You're going to need a lot of production out of DJ Burns in the paint. You're going to need very strong guard play. And that really goes for anyone you see. I mean, again, this is the dance. Anything goes here. There is no real chalk, so to speak. Anything can happen. As we've seen, even the 16s have gone down twice in the last 5 years. So it's just, all in all here, it's just so exciting to see NC State back-to-back years in the mix. And of course, for a lot of folks, getting to the dance is not quite enough. You want to taste a little bit more than that. You want to win. You want to advance around, maybe 2 rounds. I think perhaps winning the ACC title will take a little bit of heat off of that. I think you probably find many people saying, well, we have our championship for the year. I'm kind of good for the rest of the season, whether it goes well or ends abruptly. We have what we have desperately wanted for so long, but the team does not see it that way. They see it as the job is not finished. They have potentially 6 more games that they can get before they get an even bigger trophy. So it's such a fun time of the year, and I'm so thankful that NC State is yet again in the mix.
And you really, like you said, you really can't ask for much more in terms of what you would want from this team so far in terms of winning the ACC championship and all that. But there's also a very real aspect of, like you talked about, this team, I talk about the expectations resetting in real time with the football team last year, right? Same thing happens with the basketball team. There's a lot to be on the lookout here for this. Who knows how high this NC State team could go? Who knows how long this team can keep this streak going? And who knows exactly what the ceiling of this team is in terms of the tournament, because it's all still to be revealed in front of us.
I mean, the ceiling could be legitimately ending up with the trophy. UNC, for example, we'll call a spade here. They are one of the better teams in this entire tournament, and you just watch NC State dominate them. They controlled that basketball game for basically all 40 minutes, maybe like 37 minutes. Yeah. If you see that, you got to understand NC State can play with anyone. There is no team that is unbeatable. Once you get into the dance, NC State fans know this very clearly. Anything goes. Absolutely anything goes. So it's exciting to be back in the mix. It's exciting to have to break down another March Madness matchup. It's exciting to look at the bracket and start to get hopeful again. They will open their tournament against Texas Tech on Thursday. It's the graveyard shift. I believe it's a 9:40 tip. So make sure you're loading up on your Starbucks before that one. But it's what a joy to have NC State men's basketball returning to March Madness yet again.
As I said during the ACC tournament, I'll say during the NCAA tournament, expect nothing, enjoy everything.
Yes. Not only should the mindset of the players stay the exact same, playing for each other, being dangerous, I think that mindset of the fan base should also carry over. Whatever happens, we're along for the ride. Don't get your hopes up too high, and don't let the negativity get too low. Just enjoy this run for what it is. First half of this run was pure magic. We're going to have to wait and see how the second half of this thing turns out, but it's time to keep on dancing. NC State is back in March Madness. Coming up next, we're going to round out our Tuesday episode talking about the women's team in their March Madness tournament, hosting for the first time in a while back in Reynolds. after a quick word from our third sponsor of the day is FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every single game of the tournament. Whether you're betting big on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, and you can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Last couple of minutes of our Tuesday show. Now switching gears over to the women's side. Women's basketball is also in March Madness. They earned a 3 seed in the Portland 4 region. And what does this mean? They will host. NC State women's basketball will host a, pod, if you want to call it that, in Reynolds Coliseum. The other 3 teams joining them are the 6 seed Tennessee, the 11 seed Green Bay, and the 14 seed who NC State will play in Chattanooga. If you expand and look outward in the bracket, the 1 seed in this region is Texas, the 2 seed is Stanford, the 3 seed, of course, NC State, and the 4 seed is Gonzaga. Kenton, what do you think about this draw for West Moore's women's basketball team?
I think this is an extremely favorable draw. You are not having to see a South Carolina team that is undefeated. They've been a buzzsaw all season until I believe it would be either the Final Four or the national championship, one of those two. You're also looking at a situation where, most of the teams that are getting hot at the right time, playing their best ball at the right time, you don't have a ton of those in this bracket and in this region. And so, I think this is a very favorable draw for the women's basketball team. However, you still got to show up. Stanford is no pushover. Stanford is always, always, always going to bring multiple players in that front court that are going to be long. They're going to be skilled. They're going to be able to do multiple things. And so, you got to have your ducks in a row and ready to truly show up from start to finish. We can't have those lows where it's like, oh, man, did we just go on an 8-minute stretch where we only scored twice against that Stanford team? Or else, adios, amigo, there is no more tournament for you. So I think that this team can get it done. But, again, this is a favorable draw, but you still got to do the work from start to finish. Last year, we just knew we were going to take care of Princeton, right? We just knew, Princeton, they've got nothing for us. Oh, there's no way. There was, in fact, a way. There was, in fact, a way. So this NC State team, with what they went through last year, their constitution, I don't think that they're gonna fold on this thing. And I think what's most interesting about this region is there are multiple former NC State players that they could be seeing in terms of, I believe Jakia Brown-Turner in Maryland are over here. Diamond Johnson in Norfolk State, I believe, are over here as well. You've got multiple players. And is Alabama over here as well? Because I know Alabama got one of our – Alabama as well. I can't remember the young man. I believe it's Timmons went to Alabama. So, you've got multiple players, former NC State players, who could be looking for some get back, could be looking for some, hey, I was right, not y'all all along. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a fantastic draw for this team. And obviously we've talked a lot about what the preseason expectations were, and they exceeded those by a wide margin in the regular season. They had the most ranked wins of anyone in the country, showcasing what they are capable of when they're clicking on all cylinders. They've had some head-scratching games as well. Some of the games later in the regular season just wasn't all there and had some tough stretches of, like Kenton mentioned, extensive scoreless droughts and kind of almost a little bit of a tale of two seasons in a smaller sense. But obviously we know what this team is capable of, and so it makes them a extremely dangerous 3 seed. And getting to host the first 2 games is a massive advantage. And you have to expect, obviously, they can handle their business at home before you have to see a team like a Stanford to get to the Sweet 16 and there on forward. But it's tourney time for Wes Moore. We talked about Wes Moore switching into tourney mode and getting his team prepared for the ACC tournament. You have to find another gear here for March Madness. And so we just talked about how the expectations are kind of all over the place for the men's team. The expectations for the women's team, they're a little bit more concrete because they've sniffed the success in March. They've been dying to get to the Final Four and forward here for a couple of years. They've been knocking on that door, and this team, loaded with talent, if they bring the consistency as well, they could easily find themselves in the Final Four.
Absolutely. But I just want to remind everybody, for me, I look at both of these the exact same way, because men and women, because while this team did have a lot more success than the men and proved to be, again, amongst their peers, a lot more successful than the men, this was the rebuilding year. This was the year that was supposed to be the bridge between, well, we had a top 10 recruiting class last year. We're bringing another top 10 recruiting class next year. We'll start, we'll start to get back right. For me, I'm excited. Whatever this team does, again, I expect nothing. I appreciate it all, because this women's team has shown us they can beat anybody. They can lose to almost anybody. So for the men's side and the women's side, I'm going to kick back. Hopefully Grayson and I can come on here with the red cups with Kool-Aid, and that's all. That's all that's in there. Me and Grayson, just Kool-Aid. A little bit of our own stank on it. But with that being said, we hope to enjoy many wins from both of these teams going forward.
Own stank is crazy, but that'll do it for us here on Tuesday. Thank y'all so much for joining us. I have to tell y'all, Wolfpack Nation, there is no other fan base like this one. Monday's episode was a monstrous episode, and we thought it would be big. It was way bigger than I had anticipated it would be. I think we have close to 300 comments, 3,000 views, and I'll tell you this as well. Some of these comments, I kept finding a bowl of onions sitting close to me as I was reading through these, just saying, I graduated 1987 or I graduated in 77, and this is what it means to me. That's exactly what I was talking about, of what it means to this fan base. And so it was moving to see all of these stories about what it means to your family, and you've experienced the heights of the program, and now they're maybe returning now in 2024. That was spectacular to read about. So thank you all so much for interacting with this show, interacting with this episode, interacting in the comments. We love to hear from Wolfpack fans everywhere, every day, every episode, every topic, you name it. We want to know what you think about it. So thank you all so very much for the support. I've been talking about our goal of reaching 1,500 subscribers by the end of March, shattered that in about 24 hours. I think we had like 80 plus subscribers in the last 24 hours. That's insane. Thank you all so very much for the support. We love doing this for y'all. Wolfpack Nation keeps us going when we do this every day. We do this because we love to interact with y'all. So thank you all so very much for the support. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box, and continue hitting that subscribe button. We're going to have to come up with a new goal, I guess. We keep shattering the ones we set, so it's onward to the next one. We will see you all tomorrow. Until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.